I'd like to now call upon stage the speakers for the next session. May I call upon stage Dr. Amit Rastogi from Coromandel, Nidhi Lahoti from GeoLife, Dr. Praharaju Laxminarayana, sir, John Peterson from BIPA, and also Dr. R.K. Mehta. So ladies and gentlemen, now this session is all about innovations and the new trends that are going across. As you can see, the array we have right from the more experienced to the very young experienced candidates over here. And Nidhi, a warm welcome to you, the youngest probably in the whole audience, if I may say. I'm not sure. Is there anybody less younger to her? Just let me know. Our first speaker is Mr. Amit Rastogi. He happens to hold the position of Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer of Coromandel International Limited. He is a BTech from IIT Kanpur and PhD degree from the State University at New York at Buffalo, USA, both in chemical engineering. He was also selected for the Fulbright Fellowship at Carnegie Mellon University in 2010. He has been granted 10 Indian patents. In his current role in Coromandel, he's coordinating work of 6 R&D centers which are responsible for developing novel products and technologies for plant nutrition and protection. Also supporting the growth projects in new areas such as specialty chemicals. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Amit Rastogi.
My fellow speakers on the dais, distinguished delegates at the BASAI event, I would like to thank BASAI for giving me an opportunity to speak today on the topic Neem and Botanicals as biological agri-inputs. I work for Coromandel International Limited, which is one of the leading manufacturers and marketeers of neem-based pesticides. My talk today will not be focused on neem, rather I'll be focusing on botanical pesticides as a group and the benefits it can offer and what we would like to need to do to make it a serious alternative to synthetic pesticides. So the structure of my talk will be as follows. I'll first briefly touch upon the need for alternatives to synthetic pesticides, then give a brief description of botanical pesticides, the potential of botanical pesticides in terms of the bioactive content, the mode of action, and how it can offer an alternative to chemical pesticides. Then move on to the global scenario with respect to botanical pesticides. What is the kind of a global market that we have for these kinds of pesticides? And then come to the Indian scenario. The Indian scenario, I would like to briefly touch upon the current registration procedures and the regulation environment for these kinds of botanicals. And what are the challenges with respect to the scale-up and the commercial acceptance of botanicals in India. And I finally like to conclude with the suggested actions for increasing the market share for botanicals in India. Now, when the negative impacts of synthetic pesticides are well known, and some of them are listed here. So we have human illnesses due to exposure or ingestion. You have harm to non-target organisms. We have pesticide residues in food and feed. We have pest resistance and resurgence, accumulation of contaminants in soil and water, an adverse effect on biodiversity, partly because of the slow biodegradability of these chemical pesticides. So clearly there is a need to find an alternative to chemical pesticides, and this was also emphasized by many of the speakers who came before me. When I think the gentleman before me who spoke about the European scenario mentioned about the target which Europe has set for itself to reduce chemical pesticides to 50% of the current level. And I think that's probably motivated by many of the concerns which are listed here. Now, what are the alternatives to biopesticides? To chemical pesticides. So obviously, biopesticides are an alternative to chemical pesticides. And when you talk of biopesticides, we have different groups. We have the microbials, we have the biochemicals, and we have the plant incorporated. So, and within the biochemicals, we have the botanicals and the semiochemicals. Within that, we have the pheromones and the allelochemicals. So my talk today will be entirely focused on botanicals. So I'll not be talking about microbials, I'll not be talking about semiochemicals, and I'll not be talking about plant incorporated protectorants, which was basically the focus of the talk by Dr. Payental when he talked about the GM modified mustard. So my talk today will be how botanicals can offer an alternative to chemical pesticides. So what are botanicals? Botanical pesticides are primarily secondary metabolites which offer the plant, or these are basically phytochemicals which offer the plant protection against adverse environmental factors. And these are chemicals produced by the plants as derivatives of primary metabolites. And they serve the purpose of a defense mechanism. They can act as repellents, they can attractants, antifeedants, and growth inhibitors. And they can protect the plants from insects and also from parasites and diseases. Now, these metabolites, when extracted and formulated, they can be sold as botanical pesticides. The botanical pesticides offer the following benefits over the chemical or synthetic pesticides. They have low toxicity to mammals. They're relatively safe to use. They cause, again, less environmental harm or pollution. They don't cause harm to non-target organisms. They are very specific, very high specificity, low risk of pest resistance, and a large range of molecules through biosynthesis. The last point I would like just to emphasize a little bit. Now, the range of biomolecules or the range of secondary metabolites which can be produced in plants is more than 50,000, maybe 60, 70,000. And this kind of range of molecules will be very difficult to synthesize through chemical synthesis. So this is actually a very interesting opportunity because it's a vast range of molecules available for usage as biopesticides. Now, what are the range of molecules? I had mentioned about 50 to 60,000 molecules being available as secondary metabolites. So these secondary metabolites can be categorized in some 6 or 7 groups. So some of the groups are alkaloids, phenolics, terpenoids, terpenes, lipids, organosulfurs. And the mode of action of biopesticides or botanical pesticides basically falls into 4 types. They can act as repellents, antifeedants, toxicity, and insect growth regulation. By repellents, we mean basically these botanical pesticides, they repel insects from a distance and the insects are turned away from the plants. Antifeedants basically, and the repellents are basically, a lot of essential oils are used as repellents. So you can have oils of aniseed, peppermint, lemongrass oil, which can be used as repellents. Antifeedants are basically what reduce the consumption by the insects. And these antifeedants are basically azadirachtin and neem can act as an antifeedant. And that basically, it affects the digestive system, it affects the enzymes, the digestive enzymes in insects, and reduces the demand for food in insects. And that's why it is called an antifeedant. When it comes to toxicity, these botanical pesticides basically act on the nervous system of the insects. Basically, the channels and receptors of the nervous system, like the ACH enzyme, which acts as a receptor for the nervous impulses in the insect, they get inhibited by the botanical pesticides. Now, the botanical pesticides, the advantage here is that a single source of botanical pesticide can contain many secondary metabolites. It can contain an alkaloid, it can contain a phenolic, it can contain a monoterpene. And that's why, because of the synergistic effect of these secondary metabolites, the pest does not develop resistance. Because there are so many different types of secondary metabolites which are acting to protect the plant, the pest resistance is very difficult to develop to botanical pesticides, which is a problem which is seen with synthetic or chemical pesticides. And when it comes to insect growth regulation, the botanical pesticides act by controlling the reproduction, the growth, and the metamorphosis of insects. And they control it in two ways. One, by controlling, as I said, the reproduction, they control the number of eggs the insect can lay. They can control the female fertility. It can control the weight of the insects. Now, when it comes to growth, it affects the endocrine system. So the hormonal regulation in the insects can be modified or regulated by botanical pesticides. And so, let's say, for instance, azadirachtin. Azadirachtin can form juvenile hormone analogs, which can disrupt the endocrine system of the insect. Now, why does the one of the advantages is that the insect will not develop a pest resistance, because these juvenile hormone analogs mimic the insect hormones. This is one big advantage of the botanical pesticide, which is basically leads back to one of the benefits, which says that you do not have insect resistance or pest resistance or resurgence. Now, having described the the composition and the mode of action, I would like to briefly spend some time on the global scenario for botanical pesticides. So here, basically, I have shown what are the different products which are available commercially across the world. So here we have the details have been provided in terms of the botanical name, plant family, bioactive molecule, secondary metabolites, class, chemical structure, biological effect, product and trade name. So we can see that a large number of products are already available commercially in the world. So you have products like capsicum oleoresin, in which the bioactive molecule is capsaicin, and the metabolite class is polyphenolic amide. You have cinnamaldehyde, which again is the metabolite is phenyl propanide. Then we have cinnamon essential oil, which is again the class is phenyl propanide. Similarly, you have clove essential oil, which has the bioactive molecule eugenol. Then you have, I have given the trade names which are already available in the market, globally. Then you have extract of giant knotwood, which the bioactive molecule is physiocion and amodin, which is again the metabolite is polyphenols, which are natural anthraquinones. Then you have jojoba essential oils, which contain straight chain wax esters, and the metabolite structure is lipids. I don't think it's very visible, but it's sort of a lipid structure. Then Karanjan, all of us are familiar with Karanjan, which is derived from the Pongamia plant. And again, the molecule is, the bioactive molecule is Karanjan, and its structure is, the class is flavonoid. And we have lemongrass oil, which is from the plant Symbopogon, and then the bioactive is citronal and citral, and it's basically a monoterpene. Then we have neem extracts, which all of us are familiar with the bioactive molecules being azadirachtin, nimbin, salicylic, and this falls in the class of triterpenoids. Nicotine is basically the bioactive molecule is nicotine sulfate, and this is in the class of alkaloids. We have phenyl propionate, which is a substituted benzene structure, which comes from the peperita, which is peppermint oil. Poppy extracts, which are alkaloids again, and pyrethrum. Pyrethrum is basically the largest selling botanical pesticide in the world. 80% of the market of botanical pesticide is pyrethrum. And these are basically the bioactive molecules of pyrethrins, cinerins, and jasmolins, and these are terpenoids. Rosemary essential oil, again a terpenoids. Rotenone is an isoflavonoid. We have Rhynia, which is an alkaloid, and these are all, I've given the trade names of the products which are available in the global market. Sabadilla, which is an alkaloid again, which acts as an insecticide. Thymine is an essential oil, which is a monoterpenoid phenol. Garlic extracts, allicin and diallyl sulfides act as insecticides. And finally, Datura, which is again an alkaloid. So this basically gives you a flavor of what are the different kinds of products which are available in the market globally, and which shows that botanical pesticides are already gaining acceptance worldwide. But what is the scenario in India? The scenario in India is that botanical pesticides have to be registered in the schedule of the Insecticides Act. And the material that I've been presenting here is basically from a presentation by Mr. Subhash Chand, who was earlier the Deputy Director of Central Insecticides Board Registration Committee. And here, the botanical pesticides which are listed in India in the schedule are basically 6, which are pyrethrum, carangen, herbal extract, which includes diallyl sulfide, allyl propyl disulfide, neem-based pesticides, simbopogon extracts, and eucalyptus extract. So this brings us to the question that while we have 6 botanical pesticides or pesticides of plant origin which are in the Insecticides Act, we have so many more worldwide. So, we do not have clove oil, we don't have jojoba essential oil, we don't have peppermint oil, we don't have datura, so we don't have nicotine. So clearly, I feel that there is a need to expand the list of botanical pesticides which are listed in the Insecticide Act so that we can have more such botanical pesticides in the Indian market. And coming to the registration process, the process is basically the same as that for synthetic pesticides. The provisional registration can be done under Section 9(3)(b) for 2 years, and then subsequently regular registration under Section 9(3), and Me-Too registration under Section 9(4). And for introducing any product which is a formulation based on one of the 6 botanical pesticides, we need to submit data under the 4 categories of chemistry, bioefficacy, toxicity, packaging, and labeling. And the data requirements listed in the presentation were basically mentioned for neem-based pesticides, but presumably they also apply for all pesticides of plant origin. And the specific data requirements are under each of these categories are listed here. The only point I would like to make here is that the toxicity studies which are listed for botanicals are the same as those for synthetic pesticides. And that's really one needs to ask the question as to, because botanical pesticides are generally more safer and less toxic, that do we need to really have the same stringent toxicity studies that we have for synthetic and chemical pesticides, because they act as a deterrent for introduction of many new botanical pesticides. Now, I have talked about the benefits of botanicals, the advantages they offer, and how they can become a viable alternative to synthetic and chemical pesticides. But we also need to take cognizance of the fact that there are many challenges with regard to their commercial acceptance. They are still a small share of the overall pesticide markets, and I've listed some of the challenges here. One is related to the availability of raw materials for the manufacture of botanical pesticides on a large scale. In many cases, the raw materials are not available. And because there is a lot of variation in the composition with respect to region and the season, there is also the challenge with respect to the difficulties in standardization and quality control. Botanicals have lower acute toxicity, and they also have the problem of faster degradability, especially if they're not stored properly. And because a large quantity of botanicals and raw materials have to be processed to produce any commercial quantity of botanical pesticides, there's a lot of production complexity involved in the extraction processes. And finally, the regulatory processes are the same as those for synthetics and for chemical pesticides, which is a fairly stringent, long-drawn process, and that acts as a deterrent to the introduction of botanicals. So, in this, knowing that these are the challenges to get better acceptance of these botanicals, obviously we need to do a lot more work. So, in the Indian context, I would like to make some suggestions. India has an advantage that India is native to neem and pongamia trees, and by some measure, there are 25 million neem trees and 9 million pongamia trees. So obviously, there's a strong case for increasing the area under cultivation of neem and pongamia, because there's a large demand for these botanical pesticides based on these raw materials, neem and carangen. And obviously, these programs can be taken up under agroforestry. Pyrethrum, as I mentioned, is about 80% of the market for botanicals in the world. is for pyrethrum, which is not grown in India, which is not cultivated in India. The major countries are Kenya and Tanzania. And obviously, the cultivation of pyrethrum can be explored in India. And India obviously has a lot of natural materials or raw materials for production of essential oils, basically garlic, peppermint, lemongrass, clove. And these can be promoted as biopesticides in India. And CSR institutes which do R&D work on botanicals are focused mainly on medicinal and food applications. I'm not aware of any ICR institute which works on botanicals for biopesticides. We need to obviously do a lot more R&D work to develop technologies which can produce biopesticides, botanical pesticides from the raw materials at a commercial scale. We also, the use of nanotechnology for developing formulations which give higher shelf life is a very promising area. And as I had already mentioned, simplification of toxicity studies for ensuring that you don't have to go through a very lengthy process for establishing the toxicity profile of the biopesticides. That's something we need to do. And the farmers were traditionally used to use a lot of botanicals as biopesticides, but then there was a shift towards chemical pesticides because of the effectiveness and because of the cost, because they are cheap. But we need to actually reorient the farmers once again back to botanical pesticides. We need to create the same level of awareness. So this brings me to the end of my talk. I would like to conclude. These are the references. I would like to conclude by saying that basically I've talked about how botanical pesticides can offer an alternative to chemical pesticides. What is the global scenario for botanicals, and what is the Indian context? What is the Indian scenario for these pesticides, and what are the suggestions? What actions we need to take to increase the acceptance of these botanical pesticides? And I would like to thank you for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rastogi. It's been quite eye-lightening in this regard. Okay, what happened? Fair enough. Our next speaker is a youngster, as I said. Her name is Nidhi Lahoti. She is currently serving as the new product development and business development executive at GeoLife. She holds a master's degree in biotechnology from the Imperial College of London. And she is actively engaged, and she has her own NGO. If those people who have seen our earlier programs, The Voice of BASAI by Krishi Jagrat, she was interviewed in that, and she does an amazing job on underprivileged children and empowering them. The education of students for rural and underprivileged background. So, ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause for Nidhi Lahoti.
Jai Hind. This is how we address or greet people at GeoLife. So this is how I wanted to start it here as well. And before I dive right in, like Vipin uncle has already said that I'm probably the youngest here. I would expect a certain level of enthusiasm from you guys as well. I'll keep my presentation very short, but I want a lot of interaction from you guys. Okay? So you don't have to do much, but if your answer is yes to any of my questions, please raise your hand. That's all I'm asking you guys to do. So, raise your hand if you know that there are microorganisms in our gut. Happy to know that everybody knows that. Raise your hand if you know that these microorganisms are extremely vital for our bodies to function. And raise your hands if you know that these microorganisms protect us from a lot of different diseases. And raise your hands if you know that plants have their own version of gut microbiome. Quite an advanced crowd I have here. So what are these plants' version of gut microbiome? These are called endophytes, and this is what I'm going to be talking about today. So what do endophytes mean? Endophytes are basically microorganisms that live inside the plant body. We know about soil microorganisms, we know about microorganisms that are on the plant body, but there are microorganisms which are inside the plant body that also form symbiotic associations with the plant. And this can be in the vascular bundles or tissue cavities, or other intracellular spaces in the plant. And here's a small representation of how they look inside a root or inside a leaf. So plant has different stages of life cycles, and with all these different stages there are different types of associations with endophytes. So starting with the seed, endophytes are already present in a dormant stage inside the seed. So when the conditions around the seed favor growth, these endophytes become active and lead to seedling development. And these endophytes which are already present in the seed are known as spermatophytes. So when the conditions are favorable, the seedling formation starts happening, and these endophytes start moving to different parts of the plant body. So in the roots, they may help in nutrient absorption or protection from soil-borne diseases. In the shoot, they may help with nitrogen fixation or development of leaves or chlorophyll content. And when it is time to form fruits, or when it is time for the reproductive stage, these endophytes release certain hormones and enzymes that favor attraction of pollinators or certain features in these flowers that are beneficial for the reproductive stage. And moving on to the fruiting stage, these endophytes help in fruit ripening. And finally, moving on to the next generation of the plant, these endophytes get stored in the seeds again in the dormant stage until the seed finds a suitable environment for germination again. So what I'm trying to say is endophytes are inevitably found in all stages of the plant life. And this has been favored by evolution. There are studies that state association of endophytes with plants dating from 460 billion years ago. That means endophytes are doing something right, which is why the nature is favoring the presence of these endophytes with the plant through evolution. And there were studies being conducted in Louisiana in E+, that is plants colonized by endophytes, and E-, that is plants not colonized by endophytes. These are the two different test samples that they have taken, and they found significantly higher survival rates, germination rates, growth rates in E+ plants as compared to E- plants. And the mean, that is the average growth rate of E+ was the double of E- plants, which basically means that we should be favoring endophytes because these organisms are a part of the biodiversity. But because of the use of synthetic chemicals and fertilizers, we have kind of killed them. But it is our time, this is the right forum for me to be talking about this, that we need to bring endophytes back. And this is one step forward in the direction of bridging the gap in the biodiversity from GeoLife by bringing endophytes back. But how do these actually help? We're coming back to the most important point, that is the mode of action. So when plants experience different types of stresses, different types of metabolic pathways are being activated and different molecules are being released inside the plant body. For example, biotic stresses like fungi, viruses, bacteria, nematodes, insects, abiotic like drought, temperature, water, salt, all these different stresses activate or trigger different pathways inside the plant body, activating that particular gene or that particular part of the DNA to release signaling molecules. And these endophytes inside the plant body will identify these signaling molecules and say ki, acha, this is drought ka stress. So plant is experiencing drought. I need to make something that the plant will be relieved from this particular type of stress. So identifying the drought particular molecule, these endophytes trigger their own pathways to release molecules or secondary metabolites that help the plant combat this particular type of stress. So that is why we say that these are very intelligent organisms, and that is why evolution has favored the presence of endophytes inside the plant bodies, and we need to move more and more towards in this direction. So what have we done? After understanding this theory, after learning about biodiversity and evolution, at GeoLife, we conducted a wide-scale study for, this has been going on for years, and it has been 2 years that we have found significant breakthroughs in this area. we have proudly developed a bank of more than 200 different endophytes that we have isolated on our own. We have studied their properties, which could probably be secretion of secondary metabolites or secretion of antagonistic molecules that prevent pathogenesis or growth promoting hormones, could be anything. So these endophytes have different functions and properties. And then we conducted study of each of these endophytes, and we recolonized them inside the plant body to see if they're actually doing the function that we have identified or not. And then after getting satisfied results inside the plant, we isolated them again to compare the bank of endophytes that we had previously generated versus this endophyte that we had isolated again, to check if they're the same, if there are properties that are changing, to find out the stability and compatibility of these endophytes. We have tested them individually in the plants as well, and also made consortiums by testing stability and compatibility and then testing it in the plants. So we did wide-scale in vitro trials, pot trials, and field trials. And after thorough research, after thorough stability test and compatibility test, we found we shortlisted 11 strains out of the 200 plus strains bank that we have and made our product, which is called BactoSmart, because these endophytes, like I mentioned before, are intelligent endophytic organisms that live inside the plant body, which can identify the different types of stresses the plant is experiencing, and in turn release the required type of molecules for to help the plant combat that particular type of stress. So the benefits. BactoSmart, organisms in the BactoSmart product are able to produce zinc and are able to fix nitrogen for the plant. They also act as an immunity booster by producing secondary metabolites, antibiotics, and siderophores. They also produce exopolysaccharides to form a biofilm to prevent colonization by pathogenic strains. They also produce growth hormones like IAA, which help in growth regulation of different parts of the plant body, like root or shoot or vascular tissue. They also help in growth parameters in terms of chlorophyll content or germination rate, and they modify the root morphology or optimize it by regulating the osmotic adjustment as well as stomatal regulation. GeoLife has a state-of-the-art research field research facility called the GRF, or the GeoLife Research Farms, where we have a team of people from different agricultural fraternities like entomologists, pathologists, agronomists, horticulturists, where they've all come together and developed a set of parameters that need to be tested for this product, and conducted a wide study by, for example, for one trial, they're tagging multiple different plants, identifying different features, yield parameters in each of these plants, and finding out studies that are significant and studies that are not significant by doing statistical analysis. And after conducting these trials at our own facility, and we conducted multi-locational trials in multiple different crops, and here is a summary of results of percentage increase over the control crop. For example, in muskmelon, we can see that increase in plant height is about 6.9%. In tomato, we can see 14.6%. In chili, it's around 20%. In brinjal, it's around 11%. Number of leaves have increased in tomato by 33%. In chili, 14%. In brinjal, 41%. And the number of sprouts increased by 15% in muskmelon, 17% in tomato, 16% in chili, and 17% in brinjal. So this is a short summary of the yield parameters that we have tested and in different crops in different locations in India. So like I mentioned before, that endophytes are smart, intelligent bacteria who are able to identify the type of stresses that plants are experiencing. So based on that, if suppose the plant is in the fruiting stage right now, and the plant says, I think I need something that can help me ripen my fruits. So the endophytes can identify that need and produce protease. If the plant is falling short of energy, endophytes can secrete amylase to break down starch into sugars and provide energy for growth. If the plants are experiencing cell damage and require repairing, then endophytes can produce cellulase. if there is some threat like a pathogen or a disease that is being attacked, that is attacking the plant, the endophytes can identify that and produce hydrogen cyanide. Or if the plant needs growth regulation, the endophytes can produce indole acetic acid. So this is how the endophytes identify what the plants require and give them what they can. So before commercialization at GeoLife, we believe that our products have to be extremely stable. They should be able to work in all kinds of climatic conditions, soil conditions, weather conditions. So we've conducted certain stability tests, and we found out that our strains are stable at temperature 10 degrees, at room temperatures like 28, as high as 45 degrees. They're also able to grow properly and profusely between pH 3 and 10, and can survive in saline soil up to 15% salinity. So what I'm trying to say is that these strains are extremely robust, and they can probably survive in all kinds of conditions and still continue to perform as they do. And what we're offering is the product as a finished product itself in liquid and powder form, or it is also available in a concentrated form, which could be compatible with a lot of your formulations to enhance properties of your products. So yeah, thank you for your time. And if you want to know a little bit more about this, you can visit us at booth 18. Thank you.
Thank you, Nidhi. Very energetic, very precise. Thank you very much for giving us an insight on endophytes. Our next speaker is Mr. Praharaju Laxminarayana. He is the Managing Director of AG Biosystems Private Limited. He specializes in integrated pest management, promotion and marketing. He has developed an application of microherbicide for weed control. The purpose of his presentation, as he states, is to focus on the importance of biopesticides and integrated weed management for sustainable agriculture. Ladies and gentlemen, my personal favorite, the only person I know who has done something as good as bioherbicides, Laxminarayanan.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. After a hectic, sumptuous lunch we had, maybe we are all tired a little bit, but maybe I'll try my best to wake you up with my presentation. So, we are from a company called AG Biosystems. We are going to talk about our we are basically into insect pheromones as well as bioherbicides and the biologicals, microbials especially, into insect pest, disease and weed control. We are based out of Hyderabad. So we are a 26-year-old company. We are established in 97. We are DSR recognized, ISO certified, GMP facility for manufacture. We are in pheromones, microbials for insect pest, disease and weed control. So today my talk will also mix, other than the agriculture part, maybe we will also look at some of the invasives, what we are facing trouble with. So invasives, they don't belong here. They are introduced in natural invasion, through natural invasion, or thrive in the local environment, competing with the native flora and fauna. Just to cite some examples, in pests, there is locust, tuta, fall armyworm. Diseases like Alternaria, Sclerotium and Puccinia. Weeds like Eichhornia, Parthenium and Lantana. So invasive alien species, or IAS, what they are called, over 300 are reported to be invasive. Exchange damages due to IAS in agriculture, forestry in India is to the tune of about 91 million. It is recorded way back in 2002. Maybe latest figures are not available in India. But if you see the cost in IAS in Australia is about 13.6 billion. And 2011, during 2011 is the estimate what is being made. And world figures stand at more than 1.4 trillion. So if you see the pest as an invasive, they may come and they may migrate again. If you see as a disease, maybe it is controllable, it is specific to certain kind of a crop. But when it comes as a weed, it stays there. And invasive has the ability to amend itself, to grow in there. So today whatever I'm presenting is on a alien invasive weed called water hyacinth, parthenium and lantana. So what are the damages they are doing to environment for this kind of impactation? So aquatic, it is depletion of water, eutrophication of ponds, depletion of dissolved oxygen, increased turbidity and fouling. In terrestrial and in forest, we have depletion of the nutrient, competing with native vegetation, loss of and grazing lands. These are all affecting our food security. A very characterization of invasiveness of parthenium, lantana and water. Velocity of dispersal is highly dispersive. Tendency, level of threat to biodiversity is highly competitive. So these are the major points in these three weeds. So alone, if you see, in US is about 8 billion, 58 billion, about 25 billion, and Australia it's about 6.8 billion. If you compare with the of agrochemicals worldwide, this is overtaking that. About. Now and again, water hyacinth. In Malaysia, it's about $10 million, which is affecting. So with that background, we have developed 3 bioherbicides, basically mycoherbicides for water hyacinth, parthenium and lantana. They are distributing from Central America and South America to the rest of the world. See on the left corner, what you see is water hyacinth, in the center is parthenium, and on the right side is lantana camera. They all invaded into more than 50-60 countries already and doing a lot of damage to the environment. Why bioherbicides? Basically, what do you have for organic farming? Do you have some weedicide? Except for flame throwing or manually removing, there's absolutely nothing. In a smaller areas, yes, it is possible, but in a large acre of agriculture and row crops and other things, it will be difficult in future. Aquatic weed control and environmentally sensitive areas, they don't prefer any chemical weediciding. This is again a very, very important area where we can look for alternative methods for the weed control. Now, weed resistance management, already we have so many weedicides, but we also have the problem of weed resistance management issues are coming up. So this is also one area where the bioherbicides can be mitigating the resistance factor. The prevalence of non-target area contamination. Non-target area contamination is very high. Right from our childhood, what we are taught for application of weedicide, flood nozzle, you have more water so that it will not have a drifting. To avoid drifting, flood nozzle was used. So what was retained on the target leaf of the weed is only 1%, and 99% were falling back onto the non-target area and contaminating in the soil and further to the water sources, groundwater and other things. And again, it is coming back into the food chain. So this is one of the major area for residue, chemical residues issues also. So this is where if we can have an alternative, we can do it better. Very few people are operating into this field, so that it is a niche area, and bioherbicides, maybe this is one of the reasons why we went in. In biopesticides, everybody talks about more of the pest control or insect control, then maybe some disease control, and literally we find very, very few people into herbicide area. Again, herbicide area is more than 35% globally, if you see. So, we also have a chemicals are restricted into sensitive areas and water bodies especially because they are toxic to the environment as well as the fish. So what we started looking is, we are looking at things beyond microbes. So my earlier speakers have also touched upon some of the things why don't we work with metabolites, or why don't you work with the elutes of the microbes so that they will be more stable. Now, whether we like it or not, down the line, most of the countries have signed various agreements, international agreements for controlling global gases, release of CO2 and other things. So we have to fall in line for global warming. We have to do some kind of a restrictions will definitely come on the chemical inputs into the agriculture part. Now, when it comes, people are looking at what are the biologicals which will probably replace or fill in the gap. They have to be overcoming the kind of a problems what we are facing today is many challenges in live microbes to use. When you give a live microbe, first thing is shelf life issues. Second thing is the microbe has to settle into a new environment. If it is into the soil, the settling in process is much better and faster. Whereas if it is a foliar application, it becomes little difficulty. Now what we need to do to overcome this kind of a situation is, farmer definitely demands, as you spray, the performance should be seen. So if this is the kind of a expectation from farmer, even the biological solution companies should also look at innovating products in such a way that it can speed up the performance. So we started working on the elutes of microbes. Now we are talking about the first and foremost, water hyacinth, how it is invasive. So it has a more than 125,000 plants will accommodate into 1 acre. And it is about 125 tons of mat in 1 acre of pond. They have hundreds of flowers and tens of inflorescences. Then the seeds are viable for 20 years. So the seed will be under the water or on the heaps, whatever has been drawn out and put on the side of the river. When the river swells again, the seed is again inoculated. So it also has a vegetative propagation. So generally to clean the lake, they go on chopping and put back the cut matter of the water hyacinth weed back into the water. So it has a capacity to generate one more plant for each piece. So this is the kind of an issue which is happening. And also physiologically, this plant has got a daughter plant concept by stolons. It will develop a stolon, make a daughter plant, and break the stolon, and it becomes an independent plant. So this is how it has become a perfect invasive with 20 years of viability of seed. So if you don't attend, what happens? Eutrophication happens, and slowly the organic matter keeps on building up there. A big lake can become a small creek. So this is the kind of a thing where how we are losing water. This is the degree of infestation of Eichhornia in different states and union territories of India, except for the cold part of northern India, especially to the Kashmir and Himachal. Rest of the India is completely there. So we have also seen, we keep on talking about carbon sequestration and other things, but we are not looking at what is the water footprint we are losing. In this we have seen evapotranspiration loss is about almost 3.5 liter per plant per day, and it is about worked out to about 5 lakh liters in an acre per day. So generally we take pride in saying that, okay, we have exported a cup of coffee to so-and-so country and we have realized $2. but they're not counting 140 gallons of water what is required for making those few beans for making a cup of coffee. If they start calculating 140 liters of water from India, it is the Indian wealth. We are not realizing. So this is the footprint what I am looking. Otherwise, if we save this 5 lakh liters of water per every acre in a lake, just imagine each lake is around 40-50 acres minimum. And how much of water which could be useful for other purposes, either irrigation or for drinking. Now we have also done a study. What we are seeing is water hyacinth is a urban weed. Most of the lakes and other things, they are asking people to remove it. Yeah. So they are asking to remove it. So this is taking a lot of money. They are paying on a square meter basis at a huge price. So if we can reduce the weight of this, then we can save a lot of money on controlling this. This is where we have seen within 7 to 10 days, 85% of the weight is reduced. Then we can harvest it out easily. So I'll go a little faster. So this is the application what we are showing on the day 1. So within 2 hours, you can see the results. So already you can see the leaves curling inwards. And 3rd day, we give a second repeat spray so that wherever we left over can cover. Then within 5 days to 7 days, you can see the complete control coming in. Here what we expect is we need to remove this whatever dried part. If you leave it back, then it will be going into the water and the water turbidity increases. So it is not really viable to keep it inside. So whatever is harvested, we can send it for making as a manure. So this is useful as a good manure. Within 21 days, we can make manure. This again, Parthenium. This is a florific cedar, like more than 50,000 seeds in each plant. So this has a lot of effects on the human health as well as it impacts livestock. So within 48 hours, we can see the results in Parthenium. And 7 days, it can totally dry up, on, as you see right side. Then Lantana also we have developed. Similarly, this will also be within 7 days, 48 hours, we can start seeing the results. And Lantana is a major problem with forest fires generally. They also have the Lantana poisoning in cattle. They stop to feed. So for these, we have done the toxicology data on GLP, OECD protocols, and we have also done the ecotox data as well as the bioefficacy data. In 2 seasons, 3 locations data is available. So what we have done is we have also completed the details of characterization of biomolecules. We know what are the biomolecules designed. We are talking about 1 biomolecule, but we have 3 biomolecules in all the 3 products separately. We have done the NMR studies and we know the molecule what we have designed. So we have done the bioinformatics studies also where it is binding and other things. No. This is where, we are knowing where it is binding exactly. So this is binding and photosynthetic pathways 10, 11 and 14. And we have also studied the binding synergies compared with the standards available 20 weedicides in the market. We have compared the things and it is doing much better than the all other weedicides with a proof. So we have about 24 patents for this in 15 countries for 3 of our technologies developed. So this is Australian patent, this is the Japanese patent and US patent. We have totally protected this with Biodiversity Board registration. We have also won the strain. We have completed the genome studies, bioinformatics studies. Everything is in line. So we also develop some of the projects which are with rice weeds and some insecticidal molecules we are working, and also some soil fungi control and other products we are working. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Lakshmi sir, for giving us an insight in bioherbicides. I'm sure soon the day will come when we'll have at least one bioherbicide registered in our country. This regard. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is Dr. John Peter. He is the chairperson of Varsha Bioscience and Technology, India Private Limited. He also happens to be the vice president of Bio-Input Producers Association, we commonly known as BIPA. He has served as he is the scientific advisor to the research advisory board of the Tocklai Tea Research Association. He has recently been awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award for promoting biocides from the Dr. B.V. David Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. John Peter.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen who are shouldering part of Indian agriculture, and my earlier speakers. And I'm going to talk to you about technological innovations in microbial products. The unlocking the power of uncertainty. First, let me explain what is the uncertainty we are facing. There are few uncertainties I have projected: nutrient imbalance, induced imbalance, biotic and abiotic stress management, climate resilience cultivation, pesticide residue and pathogens, nutrient-rich quality produce. Of course, this nutrient-rich quality produce is a different part altogether, and how we are missing this nutrient-rich quality produce by adopting various technologies. All of you will be aware of it, and one by one I'll explain. And first and foremost is on microbials. Microbials, now they are covering biofertilizers, biopesticides and biostimulants also. In India, it has been listed as a biofertilizer and biopesticide, and government also agreed to include microbials as a biostimulant. So thank you very much for BASAI for the constant effort along with BIPA to convince the government that microbials are one of the important biostimulants. So what is the first and foremost is the nutrient. So if I want to talk about the biofertilizer, I need to talk about the nutrient also. Most of you might be aware what the nutrients are. And when we are talking about the nutrients, India and China, the consumption wise, India and China are the foremost two countries that are consuming the maximum nutrient, apart from United States and Western and Central Europe. And you see the trend of nutrient consumption across the globe. And of late, from 2017 onwards, the consumption is becoming a plateau. So now it is 0.2% growth per annum of nitrogen, 0.1% in P, and it is negative minus 1.2% in potash. There are various reasons for this stable or declining consumption of fertilizers. When it comes to the economics, you see in India, we have urea, DAP, MOP, NPK combinations. So the production versus consumption, and there are lots of gap between them, and the import is being carried out because of the less production capacity in India. So this is government also spending lots of money on the form of subsidy, and we are having the import revenue loss. So what is the elimination factor? Eliminating the uncertainty. So now we have nitrogen, phosphate and potash, and we also have effectively integrated the biofertilizers. China was the foremost and followed by India, and we are now the leaders in integrating the biofertilizers. We have mycorrhiza, we have N bacteria, P bacteria, K bacteria, zinc bacteria. All these bacteria are being carried out, formulations are available in India, and a few of the leading companies are also coming forward and trying to sell this product across the country. But will it be sufficient for us to meet the target? Say, for example, DAP and urea and potash, all of them are minerals with a limited available resource, and we are fast depleting them. And if we are going to integrate this biofertilizers with the conventional fertilizers, and we are going to how to integrate this. So there is a case study where biofertilizer has been applied in tea plant, and this is the result where 100% recommended fertilizer, 100% recommended fertilizer with the biofertilizer, NPK consortia. Rhizodine is the brand, and 75% recommended fertilizer with the 2 metric ton of vermicompost, and Rhizodine is the biofertilizer, 50% recommended fertilizer. You can see the result. There is a significant increase in made tea yield. So around 4,837 kgs in 100% plus biofertilizer, whereas in control it is 4,038 kg. So, and also when you are reducing the fertilizer dose to 25%, the statistically it is stable, on par with each other. So there is a possibility of reducing 25% of chemical fertilizer in Indian system. This is 2-year data where successfully Toklai Tea Research Association has conducted in Duvas and Lower Assam. And the report says the quality of the leaf, fine leaf is increased, bud length is increasing, and internode length is increasing, and there are no much change in the soil pH and organic carbon, whereas the nutrient T quality in terms of nitrogen, phosphate, potash, manganese and zinc are increased. So what we need is the quality of the produce. So this is where we are missing. So the quality, if you want to improve, we have to integrate this biofertilizer with the chemical pesticide and chemical fertilizers. And the available nutrient in the soil also has been studied. When you are seeing this 346, you see this 100% recommended fertilizer with the biofertilizer, 346 kg of nitrogen per hectare, and compared to 329 in 100% recommended fertilizer, because biofertilizer is compensating the nitrogen fixation, phosphate that is 78 ppm and 105 of potash. So it is above the recommended fertilizer, and when you are reducing the fertilizer, the yield is not affected, quality of the produce is increased, as well as the availability of nutrition in the soil is increased. So when coming back to the policy in India, we have introduced in 2015 neem coated urea by reducing 5 kg. So it is working well among the farmers, and farmers are accepting it. And we have also introduced 2001 nano urea. And where we are standing, we have studied, I am also representing Varsha Bioscience as Mr. Bipin said, and we have effectively studied coating this nitrogen and phosphate microbes with DAP and conducted the studies with a shelf of around 18 months. There are no deterioration, and on paddy it is giving as equal result as that of the experiment that are conducted alone, like DAP and biofertilizer. And so if there is a problem in combination of N bacteria with nitrogen, especially urea, it is a challenge. We need to go for green chemistry combination. Whereas if we are successfully integrating this microbe with the DAP, we can introduce 40 kg bag of DAP in this country, as well as MOP. In fact, when we are integrating 25 kg of MOP is becoming equivalent to 50 kg of MOP. So we have lots of potency if we are integrating, and the government policy, aggressive policy is also required to approve it. And more important for the integration is urea manufacturing is the largest CO2 emitter in the chemical industry, which emits 12.5 million tons of CO2 annually. And the mineral depletion I was talking about, and 11 states in US banned sale of phosphate because they feel that the phosphate is contaminating the water resources. Likewise, how we are feeling the nitrogen. And government also is spending 1.88 lakh crores of rupees as a subsidy. And if you are saving 25%, you can say how much we can save for the government. And nutrient quality and yield, improving the quality of nutrient production and increasing the yield is another parameter. And the biotic, I am coming back to the biotic and abiotic stress. And of late, phorate and carbofuran, when it was banned across the globe, and as well as chloropyrifos. Chloropyrifos is one of the important molecules that was able to contain these nematodes. And the nematode population, termite population, root grub population is ever increasing. Now, integrating this biopesticide, usage of biopesticides is becoming inevitable across the globe for the biotic stress management program. And eliminating the uncertainties, we need to introduce the virulent and high density microbial biopesticides, combination biopesticides, microbial metabolites. Dr. Laxminarayana was talking to you about the microbial metabolites. And not only these herbicides, we have abamectin, spinosas, all these things are derivatives of microbes. So we have worked on ivermectin for some way back 30 years before, and it was not very successful because the output was very, very less. We expected 2 gram per liter and we have got only 400 mg per liter. So it was not cost economic when we are comparing ourselves with the Chinese. And the combination biopesticide, already it is in the market, and FMC has registered this product in US as well as the Canada, Bacillus licheniformis and Bacillus subtilis. And Certis, they have come with the innovative product with the bacteriophage and Pseudomonas syringae. And these combinations are available elsewhere, not in India. And BIPA has represented this with the government of India. I only presented this when Dr. Malhotra was the chair in 425 RC meet, and the government also agreed. Now the combination biopesticide guidelines have come, and we will be soon seeing the registration of the combination biopesticide. Not only combination biopesticide, there are possibilities of combining the biopesticides with the chemical pesticides. Say, for example, few of the companies, especially Chinese companies, they are integrating the BT with the chemical pesticides. They are compatible, and we can do it if properly. If we are studying the chemistry and biological of these are both the entities, we can combine both of them. So coming back to the uncertainties, one is the temperature. This is the 100-year data so far in south bank of Toklai. I thank Toklai for this slide. And you can see there is a slight decline in the temperature, rainfall. So rainfall pattern is reducing. Around 200 rainfall is reduced in Assam, and there is a constant increase in minimum temperature. Post-COVID, if you observe it, before COVID it has started coming down, and post-COVID, critically if you see 2019 onwards, it is drastically reducing. And when you are comparing with the maximum temperature, there is within a century, we have 1 degree centigrade temperature is raised. And post-COVID, you see there is a stable temperature from 19 to 21, and again it is increasing because of the urbanization and human activities. So these are all the unknown variables. Now the known variable is the carbon dioxide elevation. So 1990 it was 265, now it is 2018 it is 411 ppm carbon dioxide. So these unknown variables are affecting the crop a lot. Say for example, tea was never got irrigation some 2 or 3 decades before. Now for every tea completion they are spending around 15 rupee per kg. So they are, yeah, I have crossed 15 minutes. I'll take another 2 minutes. So when you are doing this Pseudomonas, when you are this is the saline zodiac soil. When you are combining Pseudomonas with the recommended 50% fertilizer, the root length, shoot length, and root weight, shoot weight is increasing. Not only for the pH and also the stomatal opening as well as the water retention, all of them can be controlled with the microbes. So we are unlocking the technology, decoding the chemistry and biology, integrating the biological with the conventional molecules in an untraditional way. So I thank BASAI, participants and sponsors for giving this opportunity and conducting this meeting very successfully. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. John Peter. An excellent presentation, I must say. And thanks for gracing the occasion on behalf of BIPA and filling in the shoes of KRK Reddy, the president, who is unwell, and we wish him a speedy recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, the last presentation, but not the least, for this session, I'll be requesting Mr. R.K. Mehta, who happens to be a qualified mechanical engineer by profession. He is promoting bamboo plantations and manufacture and applications of biochar. He is also the founder, chairperson of an NGO, Rainbow Bamboo and Biochar Academy. Constantly, he's looking for active associations with various industry organizations to enrich biochar-based fertilizers with biological and other inputs for enhancing the agri-productivity. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. R.K. Mehta.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope we are not sleeping yet. Afternoon is a very difficult one, and the last speaker has a difficult chance to keep everybody awake. Anyway, I'll take the tip from our young panelists. I will also ask 2 questions. How many of you know about biochar? Have you heard about biochar? Oh, there are a number of them. Quite good. How many of you know that biochar has multiple benefits? Anybody can dare tell us how many? You, sir? How many benefits? Okay, I'll tell you. There are global warming is harmful to everybody. And especially it is my motivation. I entered this field of bamboo because of global warming. It was bothering me. After I retired from my job, I opened the NGO. And this was what was bothering me was the global warming. Then they said bamboo plantation eats more carbon dioxide. My friend had already said carbon dioxide is the culprit, which has increased in the air. And then when I came forward with bamboo biochar, I came across. Then I studied biochar. I was amazed by the properties of the biochar. How many of you know that biochar has multiple benefits? Anybody? Okay, I will share 2 major ones. Biochar helps in increasing productivity of agri-productivity recorded by many institutes by 15 to 30%. Just biochar adding is 15 to 30%. Number two, it contains global warming. And in return, it earns income. Today, carbon credit is the income available. So biochar in agriculture enhances productivity and also gets you another revenue of stream. That is the carbon credit, which is a proven fact. It is not a fiction. Carbon credit is being sold in Europe and America in large numbers. In India, they have started doing it already, and it is greatly appreciated. Biochar plus compost plus biological. I was exposed to biological by Pipin G some time ago. Since then, I've been following it, and I have found, yes, it's a very good opportunity. Biochar plus compost, which has to be, or any other fertilizers, plus biological, can increase the potency of the fertilizers. Expected increase in agri input, I said 15 to 30%, is only with biochar. What happens with the adding of the biologicals, we have to find the research about, and this is a topic for research for the companies. And Coromandel Fertilizers, Mr. Amit has agreed to try it out. It's a assured sequestration of carbon dioxide. We claim, I have been giving talks saying, cooling the globe with biochar, because capturing carbon dioxide and putting it in the soil is a proven method, accepted all over the world and the United Nations also. Just to give an example, 1 ton of biochar is equivalent to sequesters 3 tons of carbon dioxide. 1 ton of biochar sequesters 3 tons of carbon dioxide. And of course, there's a granted income of carbon credits, which is varying, of course, fluctuating, but it is supposed to increase 10 times from the present level of income because of severe global warming. My presentation in 7 modules. Introduction to biochar, its applications, R&D work being done by various ICAR labs in India. And we'll go one by one. Availability, manufacture of biochar and farm level. This is the farmers can make themselves also. And industrial level manufacturing, some case studies, and then recommendation is the last one. What is biochar? Biochar is a stable carbon product, which has a sponge type property. It is generated by pyrolysis process. Pyrolysis process is heating in absence of oxygen, a very limited oxygen. So you get a lot of porosity. It is estimated the surface area of few grams of biochar, if I were to flatten them together, it is equal to 1 football field. That is the area available in few grams of biochar. For microbes to stay in, you get a lot of opportunity for microbial gains. Biochar is stable carbon, which will not decompose for hundreds of years. Biochar is the inert material. Biochar specifications have been published by IBA, International Bureau Association for Biochar, almost about 10 years ago. And now, National Agency, ICR, ISS, Indian Institute of Soil Sciences, Bhopal, has issued specifications, same as IBI, for agriculture applications. So there is a specification available for India also today. Biochar for agri application has been approved and published as a standard for the ICR, ISS. When did they scientists discovered biochar? Almost about 200 years ago, let's say, by studying a soil in Amazonian forest, which is called terra petra in Spanish. That is how the language came, terra petra soil. It's a very popular example. Soils are very fertile, only those where a lot of carbon is available compared to the other soil in the same forest. Applications of Biochar. I just mentioned Agri-1 because our audience here is Agri-1, but there are many other applications, forestry application, animal husbandry. 3% addition of Biochar in agriculture animal feed can have tremendous benefits. Pharmaceutical sector, cosmetic sector, mines, it can be used energy product. And the biggest opportunity for Biochar is now greening of steel industry. I am sure you must have read in the media. The greening of the steel industry is a global phenomenon. And in India, Government of India decided, the Ministry of Steel is already set a program. We cannot export our steel outside because of the carbon footprint. So that has to be reduced in next 5 years. So that's a very big opportunity for Biochar manufacturers. Newer applications are evolving regularly. Lot of R&D work. In the year 3 years ago, 6,000 research papers were published in the world market. Peer-reviewed papers, research papers, 6,000 papers were published. That is the volume of research going on and will continue to go on in India also. Importance of Biochar. A little graphic shows you that carbon dioxide in the air is very important for us because photosynthesis, by photosynthesis, generates the biomass. Biomass is pyrolyzed. Pyrolysis is done. One product we get is Biochar. The byproducts are heat. A lot of heat energy available to us, which is used for various applications. And then there's the oil available called wood oil. This is a typical specification of bamboo Biochar. Shows bamboo Biochar used in agri, air filters, cosmetics, and various animal feed. This is R&D work by the drum type, simple type of equipment were manufactured almost 25 years ago, but they were not popularized beyond the lab the test reports. These are work going on. Permanent availability of biomass, this shows the biomass available. Availability of planted biomass is going to be increased. Manufacture farm level and manufacture industrial level. Farm level, simple equipment are there, which are made. They are not very efficient, but that is the only alternative. To shift biomass from a distance to a central location, you create a lot of footprints. Carbon footprint gets created, so it becomes negative. So this is one. This is second one, third one, fourth one. This is industrial products plant. You see the byproducts available now, heat and oil. This is industrial plant. This is the industrial plant, air curtain, firebox type. This is wet, very wet sewage is being treated there. This is one plant is working in Warangal of this type. This is my visit in Canada. I went in. This is air curtain type of Biochar making machine. The next slide shows here a 60-day trial. I think you mentioned about the trials. 60-day trials. See the Biochar controlled field and a Biochar fed field. One plant is 1.5 feet high, Ockerel plant. Other is 6 feet high. This is the result of recommendations, 10. Trained members of the FPOs and members of the other farmers association at center like Neem, etc. Application manufacture of Biochar. It can create a lot of jobs. It can create a lot of jobs. And greater education, we request government people, I'm sure through your organization also, BASAI can recommend. A lot of R&D money is to be involved. There is a good opportunity for scientists to be involved. And a lot of job opportunities available for scientists also to take up the research. This is one of the side advantage of a lot of job opportunities at the rural level, making the Biochar, and the central level and the R&D level. Setting up industrial demo plants. Demo plants are very expensive. Good industrial plant costs about 4 to 5 crores. And India, that is one constraint today, availability of funds for unknown or new technology. So we are requesting government to put up 3 technologies, and they may soon do that because of greening of steel to make the Biochar. Train consultants and domain and the manufacturer thing. Last 8th is very national, establish a national Biochar board, like the National Honey Board. There is a National Honey Board made, and they had a presentation in Hyderabad recently, where I come from. And there are many published Biochar success stories. Your journals can also carry them. Thank you very much, everybody. Kind of you.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta. You've been quite insightful in this regard. Ladies and gentlemen, before we call it the end of the session, we have amongst us, I'll just take 5 minutes more of yours, please. Just be patient. We have Professor Shashi Sharma, a professor and chair of Biosecurity and Food Security, Murdoch University, Australia, and he has also been actively involved with the government regulatory affairs. Professor Shashi Sharma, please.
Thank you, Vipin. Thank you for the invite, and I have greatly appreciated attending so many good lectures, and it's been a great learning for me as well. My name is Shashi Sharma, and I just can you hear me well? And I just wanted to share with you my some of the current roles that may be relevant to BASAI and the participants here. One role that I have is a member of a Biosecurity Council, a council which advises the minister and the government in Western Australia. Another role that I have currently is the founder chair for World Bioprotection Research Foundation, which is working on microbiome and also biologicals. It's a global one, and that has relevance to this one. And third, I thought would be of relevance to you is primarily my role that had been as a director plant biosecurity earlier as a regulator. How to have for example, biologicals, one of the major obstacles that you have is their registration, is to how to get the regulator's mindset. And I would like to share that one in 2 minutes. One is that when you're talking to a regulator is a person who is a public servant. And the regulator is looking at from the perspective, is risk averse. The moment there is lack of information, the regulator is going to say no. So if biologicals are to be there, then you got to work with the regulators. And as a regulator, what we are advising is the role is changing. The regulator has to see himself or herself as enabler. And to be enabler, it's very important that the enabler is confident that whatever you're signing, you're confident it is not going to ever be adverse to the public or to the environment. So the changing role of the regulator, industry must help. Rather than your approach, the regulator is not working, the system is not working, it is never going to work. So as to how to work with the regulator, and that is where how to make the regulator to be enabler, that you need to work it out. And that is happening in most countries. Another thing I wanted to say is that when I entered, and there were so many talks on biopesticides, and I have written about it, is why would you like to call a useful organism as a pesticide? When the community is telling us that, look, we don't want pesticides. I can understand a chemical pesticide company having one biological. They say, oh, that's a chemical one, that's a biological biopesticide. But not us. So we have to find a new term. If you want to have biologicals to have their niche, first of all, you have to say that they are bioprotectants. So here is a body here. You should talk about bioprotectants rather than biopesticides. The change of terminology is very important. And secondly, the registration process is going to be very different to what you think always, because we have taken chemical pesticide as a benchmark. No, that's not going to work. You're going to work with living organisms and their products compared to non-living organisms, the products. So it's a very different one. So unless you come up with the understanding that this is a novel thing you're doing, and you base it always on the basis of your chemical pesticide, it's not going to work very well. It's going to take a longer time than you expect. Another thing which is extremely important is that as a regulator, when you're working with living organisms, and if you think they're going to do it international business immediately, it's not going to work. So you have to give some time for biologicals to be internationally, being used as a market, as for chemical pesticides we are used to. We have to develop local markets first, and I would say work very local markets rather than even national markets. And there's one more thing which is important for all of us is to, and there was one speaker here, and I have my own thoughts. He was a regulator, I thought, who was saying that it is going to take a long time for biologicals to come up. And I say the 21st century is the century of biologicals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all the speakers for a wonderful talk. I hope everybody was enlightened by it. May I request our Vice Chair, Sandeepa Kanitkar, to kindly give mementos to all the speakers across. Let's go one by one. Amit Rastogi.
Thank you. I took many notes.
Lakshmi sir. मेरे लिए निधि को छोड़ के बाकी सर ही हैं यहाँ. John Peter.
Thank you.
BIPA, thank you very much, sir. Gracing the occasion. And the young and energetic Nidhi Lahoti. And Mr. R.K. Mehta.
Thank you.
Professor Shashi.
Thank you.
It's been really wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You've been a wonderful audience. Just a little brief. Tomorrow we start the session at 9:30 with the Women's Conclave. And then we have got a CABI Bioprotection Portal in Hindi inauguration. You've seen the whole thing. And please join us for a cup of tea and then stay across for interaction in the exhibition hall. Dinner is going to be served in the Italian time. So it's Spanish time. So it's 6:30 to 9. So you won't miss out and not be late across. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.